Alright everyone, Supreme Kami over here. So two things I need to go over in today's video. So first thing first, we got the Hardship Star reset. So it's March right now and it looks like that they are bringing this back on a monthly basis. That is actually very good. So in terms of item that you should be picking up that I have already picked up, it's definitely going to be your holy trio over here. So we got ourselves that trade up pincer, definitely going to be really good trying to raise some of those portrait level T, so that's always going to be good. And next we do have the skill knife, or no, skill upgrade knife over here. So this one is going to be targeting your EX skill. So if you want your EX skill to hit a tad harder, definitely use this one to upgrade that, because these are giving out 1000 XP, so that is very good. And then in terms of the trade up CPU, I feel like this one should be reserved for any build project pilot. So whenever you guys are able to form up a good build project pilot, definitely use that on that and you guys should be pretty much set to go. So that's gonna be pretty much it in terms of the hardship shop right here. I don't think there's anything other things you want to be using, I guess. Maybe the 5-star pick tickets, you know, the overall roster that I'm pretty sure a lot of people were kind of like, yeah, why aren't they really updating that? It's still stuck on Destiny Impulse, I believe, right now. So but I mean, that overall roster, there's still tons of good part that you guys can slowly farm it out. Maybe each month you guys use you guys use the 300 hardships to see which part that you really need for, like, you know, like a necessity, right? Like which kind of part you guys can use to kind of further upgrade your build, maybe for aesthetic or whatsoever. I think that would be good. But let's say further spending your 5-star pick tickets on elsewhere, I don't know if that's really worth it, just because you know, the overall roster is not really that updated, for example. So that may factor in if you want to use it or not. So in terms of these little items up here, that really depends on your overall needs. If you don't need them, definitely don't use your hardships to exchange for them. So pretty much it for here. So the next thing to go over is actually going to be the growth hanger, because, you know, with the celebration of the 6 million download, so they are dropping a bunch of events, and then a lot of like campaigns and stuff. So this is one of them. So in terms of growth hanger, they're actually generously giving us a 6-time rate in terms of how much HP we can be getting per day. So only 2 hangers going to be able to get that effectiveness. That is going to be obviously the free one, you know, obviously, right? Can't go wrong with that. And then the second one is going to be the paid version of it. So in terms of how much we are getting, so in terms of free version, we are able to get 500, or not, whoa, 500 will be lit, but you know, in terms of free one, we are able to get 50 per day. So multiply that by 6, we should be able to start it tomorrow. So starting tomorrow, March 2nd until April 5th, so a total of 35 days. So starting tomorrow, we will be getting up to 300 per day for the free hanger. And then in terms of the course hanger over here, since the course hanger is already starting out at 150, so if you guys did purchase this one, you guys should be roughly getting about 900. So it costs, you know, 3 times a day. So I mean, that's pretty much self-explanatory if you guys do know the difference between them already. So next up, let's kind of talk about, you know, how much experience point you can get for both of them at the maximum day of 35. So since the campaign is gonna last for like a 5 weeks straight, so in terms of the free version, you should be able to get up to 1,005 or 10,000. Whoa, excuse me. 10,500, so that is a very significant amount number there. So I would say that roughly equates to 1 part getting maxed out in terms of the growth ratio of 3. So if you guys do take a look at every one of your part, there's a binocular upside down facing downward. I don't even know what that symbol is actually. I simply call it the binocular, like the single binocular, because I don't know really what to call it. So these right here signifies how many experience points that is needed per part. So this one is, you see 3 icons right there, so you'll need 12,000 points to max it out. So sometimes you see 2 icons, that's going to be 10,000, and then sometimes you might see 1 icon, it's going to be 8,000. So obviously part with 3 of those icon means they're pretty good, so usually they'll be a little bit more costly in terms of upgrading them to max. So 12,000 points, so even with like after a whole month later, a month and a week, you won't be able to max out fully a part. But I mean, like, if you could get a part roughly up to, let's say, portrait or EX skill level 9 or 8 to 9, that is a very good place to be in. But you can definitely split it up. So maybe you want to split it to multiple part. You want to get them to a specific level T. But I think that is a very good way to be doing that. So that's gonna be pretty much it. But in terms of the free or the pay version of it, since we are getting 900 a day, I think roughly we should be getting up to, I think, 31,000. That was the math I was getting at. Could be wrong, but in terms of 31,000, that is roughly about 2.5 parts getting maxed out. That's crazy. My gosh, I will have to think about what kind of parts I want to be putting on here, because I don't know if I want to put these on for now. But these are definitely some fun stuff I am working on right now, and then I'll talk about. I think right now let's do actually talk about what kind of good parts that you guys should be focused on in terms of upgrading or putting on here, because like 10,000 experience points, like you don't want to put that into waste. So definitely trying to upgrade parts that you think are going to be essential to you in terms of like clearing missions. Trying to beat the 3-on-3, because that is probably the most discussed topic in terms of like how do I beat that, why is it so hard to beat that. So those things are probably going to be discussed in this video. So I think let's talk about the arena, the most glorious 3-on-3 arena. I think CD build are definitely a good way to go about that. But in terms of, let's say, upgrading for your EXQ cooldown parts, I still think those parts should be reserved for, let's say, standard parts, because they're just so much easier to max out in terms of a standard part. But I would say, in terms of the counterintuitive, the standard or even the welfare, the EXQ parts, the EXQ down parts, they don't really give you that additional part rate, the secondary part rate up to alteration. They don't really come out as like, oh, an additional power boosting. So I do get the fact that you are going to be losing out a lot of power boosting compared to, let's say, oh, let me just kind of find one for example, right? In terms of the Soul Criteria version, they usually come with a very good, let's say, I don't know, like EXQ power boosting. So let me see if I can find some right now for you guys to just kind of get a rough idea of what we're looking at. Okay, what about this one? So we're gonna be looking at the Raphael Gundam's leg over here. So this one max out. Look at that. You're getting a shooting power boosted by 40%. So if you're talking about like a welfare part or like a standard part, I don't think we get those kind of like good option. So if you do want to put a little bit effort into upgrading these, I mean, that's totally fine, because that is definitely going towards a arena build. That is totally fine. But if you can, let's say, just use the standard EXQ cooldown part, or even the welfare version, just fine. I guess don't focus on these specific part right here, because like you really do have to upgrade at least 4 to kind of get that, or 4 to 5 actually. You will need to upgrade 5 to get that 100%, which is extremely costly given the fact that we can only kind of put 1 in here. You can only get 10,000. So speaking of that, so we did talk about the EXQ cooldown part. So I said, those should be reserved for, let's say, standard part or even welfare part. So the next thing, the most essential part, let's say some EXQ initial charge boosting. So initial charge boosting, those part has been a lot more generous lately, because with the introduction of the max out 25%, base level 1 are starting out at 15% already. So you guys should be pretty good up and going in terms of trying to execute some custom EXQ or some EXQ that has longer first time usage. So I don't know if that's something you guys might need to upgrade, for example. But those are definitely something we can put into the bucket of like some portrait to be targeting. So that's gonna be it. I think the next essential one is definitely gonna be some of your power boosting, like the meat of the build, because I would have to say, despite how high a stat can be of a certain part, at the end of the day, a max out portrait should still perform better than a freshly level 1 part that has a better stat, for example, because the portrait overall it will just allow you to just perform better, just output better, and so on and so forth. So so those are going to be some essential part that you guys should be focusing on. I guess the last but not least is definitely, if you guys can focus on part that will give you some buff EXQ effects portrait, those are definitely going to be highly recommended in terms of dealing some high damage, trying to output some high numbers, for example. But at the end of the day, it really depends on what kind of parts you guys have in your box. I do know that not a lot of people would have parts all traded, and that's understandable, because in terms of getting the specific L batch for unit is hard. I get that. So So the first thing first, trying to focus on part that you guys have alterated already. So that is pretty much going to be a good starting point. So parts that is alterated, do kind of make sure that they do have some good portrait. Maybe they already do have double boosting portrait. Let's say even talk about 30%, 32 to 35 ratio. If that is what you have, upgrade those. Like you don't have to care about the double 40%, because if you can't get those parts, you can't get those parts. There's really no reason to wait for them, I guess, unless you guys want to go this route and you want to spend some hardships into summoning the best banner in the game, the ultra banner, that you could get some 40% trade. But otherwise, if you guys do have some pretty good option kind of up kind of high level already, just kind of continue focusing on them, and that should be pretty much good to go regardless of what kind of part you guys are looking at. So that's gonna be pretty much it. So I guess next, let's talk about some parts that you want to focus on a specific build. So let's talk about both melee and shooting. So in terms of that, let me actually just say once again, in terms of a melee build, the most important part that you want to be focusing on is definitely going to be a good pair of arms. So generally speaking, I would say if you guys can find a good arm that comes to at least like a 30 to a 35% split for the power boosting, that'll be good. But if you guys can get those 40% trade, that is even better. So that's gonna be some recommendation that I will pretty much give for you guys. So if I filter my box by the highest melee attack, let me do the highest, and then we'll filter up our arms, and then we'll take a look at the melee weapon, because that is gonna be the next best thing to be looking at. So we are taking at my roster over here. So I will have to say, don't use the EX one. Do not upgrade the EXQ, because those are, I'm not gonna recommend those because those are really personal. EXQ that you guys like will probably differ from mine, so I can't say, oh, I like this EXQ, you guys should upgrade as well because it's cool, I like it, you guys should upgrade as well. I'm not gonna say upgrade those, but in terms of portrait, they are pretty much the same. So I would say if they're good, they are pretty much gonna be good. So first up, we have a brand new part. So we have the double XM riser. So I'm just using this as a plain example because the portrait that we'll be looking at is fairly going to be universal anyway. So these are something that I will highly recommend you guys put in the rope hanger. So a double 40% trade. These are definitely some good parts to be looking at for sure. So that's that. Some other finicky ones to be looking at is definitely my favorite. So this one is going to be the Jet Arch Gundam arm. So this one is a very good indeed option because you're not only this but I believe right now is the first one, like the first and only one for like a Sokai tier. This one is giving you a buff skill effects on your arm. I know that we do have some option for the standard or even welfare. Not even standard. I don't know if standard have any, but welfare I know we do have one, and this is probably the best one on this class actually. So not only are you getting a melee power boosting, but you're also getting the best trait, the buff EX effects when your EX skill does have any attack multiplier or attack effects. So that is gonna get multiplied, not really multiplied, but you basically add that 30% on top of what the effects is on the EX skill is giving out. So gonna be like these actually do kick, like they start getting off like once you activate at least two EX skill that comes to attack buffer. They're gonna start hitting real hard like in a short period of time. I guess the double shield quantum arm is still a very good option despite the fact that it does not have a 7-star rarity. Still very good, so not bad of an option right there for sure. So these are generally some part that I'll be focusing on, like the non-EX skill one, something that is actually going to be giving you the extra power. So yeah. Alright, moving on to some range or some melee weapon to begin with. So max out again. So it's just going to be a prime example. It may not be something you have, but these are something you guys can be focusing on for sure. So we have some very good portrait right here, some melee boosting as well as some buff EX effects. So that's why these are going to be very good. High status as well. So some other one that you guys may run into throughout the course, of the 7-star range over here is probably a good beam saber, Cold Sora. So Cold Sora is definitely not a bad option. So upon alteration, you will receive another 40% trait boosting. So that's why these are generally something you want to be focusing on. And in the description below or in the comment section, I'll actually pin out some good parts that are actually 40% trait. Some are actually going to be some essential part that you guys should be focusing on, and that's going to be pretty much it. So I think that's gonna be pretty much it in terms of showing what are some good parts, like some general ideas, for example. So moving on toward to your shot department. So shot department, the best two things to get for a shot build is definitely gonna be some head, a good head part, for example. So for a head part specifically, let's see what we have. So I'm gonna start things off with the second V. So this one is actually a very good part that I am currently investing into, a double 40% trade, so definitely cannot go wrong with that. So very good option, but you know, the condition of this, I'm not going to talk too much about that, but generally these are something we want to be looking on here, I guess. And then another one that we have on here is actually going to be this one over here. So we have the Wing Gundam Zero. This one is actually not a bad option, to be honest, because this one does give you those initial EX skill boosting. So starting out at 15%, so you should be able to get some of your EX skill up and going already, so not a bad option at all. And upon alteration, you do get another 40% EX skill boosting when you are using beam weaponry. So I mean, it's a little bit restrictive, but generally these are something you want to be focusing on. And then I think that's pretty much it in terms of the upper echelon over here. I don't think there's any other 40% trait on my roster here, but I could be mistaken, but I may not have pulled them, that's why. So yep. But in terms of your ranged weapon, the last one at least, let's see what we have. So if we do this over here, so kind of ranged weapons that are pretty good are actually gonna be something like this, I guess. So we got whoops, not that one. So we have this one over here, so the Mega Beam Cannons from your second V as well. So this one is going to be a very good combo as well from your second V head, because this one is giving out initial EX skill charge right there, as well as the double or just a single 40% trim. So definitely cannot go wrong with that. And then the one I'm currently working on is going to be this one. It's going to be the A to Z Twin Hyper Mega Launcher. This one is going to be giving you the same thing as the XM Riser Blade is, a buff EX skill effect. So that's why I'm calling this one a very good portrait over here. So I guess another one we can be looking at, or just something to give you guys a broader idea, it's going to be a double 40% tree. So we basically have looked through three different you know, like portrait scenario you guys can be running into that are going to be very good to upgrade. They will definitely further boost what kind of build you guys are looking at in terms of output, stat. Definitely cannot go wrong with all those options right there. So in terms of some non 7-star part currently, are probably this one, the Judge Arch Gundam of GM Buster Sword. This one is a very good option because this is one of the best shooting parts to look at prior to the 7-star range. I gotta say, this one is going to be a double 40% trace, so cannot go wrong with that. But my only concern with this one, in terms of subslot wise, this one may not be the best. You know, depending what kind of icons you guys are looking at. The blade or the twin rifles curl, like I will have to say, does not receive the best subslot ability compared to, let's say, something of like the regular rifle, for example, or even some other ones. So the rifle ones is definitely going to be the best for, let's say, subslot. You know, that's going to be pretty much it for let's say your melee weapon. I think saber wise, like this the regular saber is definitely the best subslot available. But I guess in terms of melee, we definitely do have a lot of more like big scope subslot option, but not for your shooting base specifically. So but with that said, that's going to be pretty much it in terms of what I have to recommend for you guys up here. So in the pinned comment section below, I would definitely leave out some other recommendations that I have not listed on here. So because with the time constraint, I can't just really go over everything that I wanted to. So these are just going to be some rough ideas that I think are going to be pretty good. So with that being said, that's going to be pretty much it, and I will catch you guys all on the next one.